So back a few years ago, Shonen Jump was testing the waters with some new series, and the one that caught my eye the most was a manga by the name of The Promised Neverland. A series so unique from what Jump was known for publishing, and from chapter 1 I was hooked by this fresh take on the horror genre, and after many months of reading I put that series down